Welcome back to another tabletop review. Today we'll look at the Smith Wesson Model 22A. For the most part, a couple of decades or more ago there were a few gun manufacturers that you could rely on to make a fairly good product. In my opinion, one of those was Smith Wesson. Usually their guns were solid, reliable, and built to last. The Smith Wesson Model 22A has been around for about 25 years now, but it's still held in high regard and viewed as a good target pistol with good performance. Some would argue that it may not be one that meets the standards for a legacy firearm, but it's still one of the good ones. Unfortunately, Smith & Wesson has discontinued so many of their great classic guns to focus on their successful M&P polymer line, and I believe the Model 22A may have been just another one of those casualties. Well, you might ask, where did I buy this pistol? Well, this is another one of those 22s I picked up quite a few years ago when my kids were young and still at home. It was used and it had a good price on it, but the fact that it was a Smith & Wesson was very attractive, and I liked the idea that it was so easy for breaking down and cleaning. At the time, it would be the easiest 22 pistol I owned in that regard, which meant I was more likely to take it out. Still today, when I head out to the range, regardless of what my primary range gun is, I always throw a 22 in the range bag as well. And for quite a few years, this was the 22. By the way, I also liked the top rail for optics. I thought that added to the fun. I had this gun for a long time, and I've acquired quite a few 22s over the years, so the question is, how do I feel about this Smith & Wesson Model 22A today? Is it still the first 22 I reach for when I'm heading out to the range? Let's make sure this one's cleared. Originally founded in 1852 by Horace Smith and Daniel B. Wesson, Smith & Wesson is a U.S. company that was originally located in Norwich, Connecticut. This Model 22A was made in Holton, Maine. While I have a lot of information on Smith & Wesson, I haven't found out much about the history behind the development of the 22A, except that it came out in 1996. Given the serial number and the features on this one, I assume it was one of the earlier productions. As I understand it, when Smith & Wesson officially announced that they were discontinuing production of the Model 22A in 2015, they hadn't been making them for some years before. That may have had something to do with the release of their new stainless steel fiber optic sighted SW22 Victory model in 2016. Whatever, the Smith & Wesson Model 22A in its day was reasonably priced, well designed, accurate, and looked pretty good. While the Victory could be had for about $400, you could get a 22A for less than $250, and keep in mind it's an accurate, well-designed, and well-made gun. It was really a bargain. One of the reasons I like 22s, and I have a bunch of them, is because of the problem we're having right now with the cost of and availability of ammunition. I like to shoot, but nobody's giving me free ammo, so shooting can be expensive. With the higher cost of ammo, that's one thing. However, when there's also a shortage of ammo, well, you really think twice about breaking out a box of 9mm for a trip to the range, especially if you're not sure when you'll be able to replenish your supply. I don't worry so much about my 22 ammo supply, but spending the day at a range with a 22 that isn't a pleasure to shoot isn't worth it either. I won't take a gun unless it's reliable, accurate, and basically fun to shoot. What would be the point? And as I mentioned earlier, the Smith & Wesson Model 22A was indeed one of those 22s that fit that need nicely for me for a number of years. My Model 22A came in a nice hinged plastic box, carrying case. It came with an extra magazine, the packing paper with a cleaning cloth, manual, and of course the lock. As for specifications, the Smith & Wesson Model 22A is a single-action blowback design 22 caliber target style semi-automatic pistol. The barrel length on this one is 7 inches, but Smith & Wesson also made 4 and 5.5 inch barrel versions. The barrel and the slide are steel, the frame is aluminum alloy. An all-steel version, the 22S, was available from 1997 to 2004. There's a full-length Weaver-style rail for optics. The ambidextrous magazine release is here. and the magazine capacity is 10. It's a good magazine. Has a loading knob here on the side. There's a takedown button here for fairly easy disassembly. There's a thumb safety here. Model 22As made after 2001 have a mag disconnect. This gun does not have that. The slide lock is here. It does lock back after the last round has been fired. The grips are synthetic. Rear sights are fully adjustable. They are metal, as is the front sight. Trigger pull is about 3.5 pounds. It's nice with a good crisp break. To demonstrate trigger pull, I'm going to load a couple of dummy rounds into the gun. Very short pull, nice crisp break. As I said, trigger pull is about 3.5 pounds. Excellent. Overall weight is 38.9 ounces empty. As for my range experience, even with the aluminum frame, this 7-inch barrel Model 22A is heavy, and somewhat, as you might expect, muzzle heavy. It has thick grips. I have large hands, so this gun fits my hands pretty well. I like the thumb assist on the magazine for loading, but the knob, loading knob, could be a little larger for comfort. It has a very positive click when you insert it home, and it really flies out when ejected. Racking the slide is easy. Given the caliber and the weight of this gun, there's very little muzzle rise when firing CCI mini-mags, and there's barely any recoil. Target reacquisition, as expected, is great. All but the cheapest junk ammo cycles through this gun without any problems. CCI is the best, of course. The trigger is quite nice, very light and crisp at the break with short take-up. I would say it's excellent, actually. Accuracy with this gun is no problem. Maintaining a tight 3-inch spread with iron sights at 25 yards is easy. With a red dot scope on the rail, accurate 50 and 60 yard shots are possible. This gun is a pleasure to shoot. As for cons, it's not a big deal, but the location of the magazine release button is a little strange, although I think it's meant to be ambidextrous. The overall weight of this gun is another issue. For a 22, it's really heavy, and I know the 7-inch barrel doesn't help this. With the thick grips and its weight, this is probably not a choice for a small person. Perhaps a bigger issue I should mention is the plastic recoil spring spacer, which is prone to breaking according to internet reports. The good news is that it's cheap to replace. Also, there was a recall due to a slide defect on this gun for those produced between August 1st, 2008 and February 14th, 2009. If you got one of these and your slide has a punch mark on the rear underside, you're probably okay. If not, contact Smith Wesson about the recall. When it comes to pros, the Smith Wesson 22A has a really excellent trigger. When I reviewed the Buckmark, I said its trigger was better, but I'm not so sure. The Smith & Wesson trigger is actually a little lighter. Now both guns are really good. The fully adjustable sights are great as well. The full-length Weaver style top rail really works terrific. I've attached a lot of different optics to this gun over the years. With its 7-inch barrel and good optics, it's kind of fun to see what you can do with this gun, and it's very capable. The Model 22A is very well made and fitted. It's very solid with smooth action. The 22A doesn't particularly like junk ammo, but anything reasonable runs through it just fine. The Model 22A is very accurate, highly reliable, and very easy to maintain. Much better than the Buckmark when it comes to disassembly, and it costs less. Is it better overall than the Buckmark? Well, I wouldn't necessarily go that far. I still see used Smith & Wesson 22As in gun stores from time to time, and the prices seem to still be fairly affordable, although they're increasing like everything else. This assembly is fairly easy. We're going to remove the magazine, bring the slide back, lock it in place there. Now we can push on this button here for disassembly. With it pushed back completely, we're going to just push back a little on the up and back a little bit on the barrel. It allows us to remove it from the frame and then release the slide release there, and recoil spring, the rod, and the recoil spacer. Recoil spring spacer is the item I was mentioning. It sometimes breaks, and they're not very expensive to replace. Reassembly is basically the opposite. The recoil spring spacer goes on the rod like that and onto the spring like that. I'm going to return the slide first to the frame, and then the spring and the rod, the spring and the rod right into that little groove and into that area there, back in that direction, and then push the slide back, lock it in place. With that held back there, we now can insert this end of the barrel assembly into the slide there, and this unit just goes down in there. There we are. There we go. Well, as for cost, I mentioned earlier the Model 22A has been discontinued. The manufacturer suggested retail price on the new SW22 Victory model is $416. I've recently seen used 7-inch barrel Model 22As being sold for around $300. The stainless steel version, called the Model 22S, sells for a bit more. In perspective, if you're more into just targeting and plinking compared to the competition Smith Wesson Model 41, that's been around since 1957 and still sells for about $1,300, the Model 22A or S are real bargains. Well, let's wrap up. So to answer my original question, am I still taking the Model 22A to the range as often as I used to? Well, to be honest, no. As I said in my review of the Browning Buckmark target pistol, given that I reviewed the Taurus TX22 with its 16-round magazine and the Beretta M922 with its 15-round magazine, there's no doubt today that I'm a little jaded when it comes to these 10-round magazines that are typical of these old-style target guns. When I compare these high-capacity guns on just about all measures to the Model 22A, including cost and reliability, the suppressor-ready Beretta M922 and Taurus TX22, in my opinion, actually beat out the Smith & Wesson 22A and even the Buckmark, as good as they are, and they're really good. Okay, the accuracy I can get with a target gun like the Model 22A, with its 7-inch barrel and an optic, is going to be hard to beat with a gun like the Taurus or the Beretta, but with their high-capacity mags and the fact that I can add a suppressor, well, the fun factor with the Beretta and the Taurus just pushes them to the top. This, of course, is just my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong. I still take the Model 22A to the range on occasions, but today it has competition. Now, that being said, the Smith & Wesson Model 22A, especially with an optic added, is just plain accurate for a pistol. It may not be a competition level gun, but it's accurate enough for what it costs. It has a great trigger, and I like the full rail, but its breakdown for cleaning is so easy that I find I'll take it to the range over the Browning or my Ruger Mark III for just that reason, even though the Buckmark might be a little better gun. So how do I feel about the Smith & Wesson Model 22A today? Well, I'm glad I bought one when I did. It's been a good shooter, and I've enjoyed taking it to the range. I may not take it to the range as often these days, but I'm not ready to totally replace it either. Any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe.